Welcome, everybody, at another episode of the Titan Business Builders. And today we really have a Titan on the podcast. It's Mike Giannulis. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
Hey, doing good. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And yeah, great to see you here. Um, I was looking through all the information that you have provided us, and maybe some people already know you, but for people that do not know you, I will try to announce you as a serial entrepreneur, business owner of multiple businesses at the same time at this time. So I hope I say that right, and I will let you explain a little bit more what those companies are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great intro. It is always kind of weird because I don't necessarily fit into a certain structure. I'm not like your typical consultant or something like that. Um, I've invested in or own or started probably by this point now probably 20 or 30 different companies. But where I've got it cut down now, so maybe I'm involved in some way in about 7 or 8 companies. They range from a real estate and investment firm. There's a we also we haven't done a bunch this year, but we also done some house repair work where we'll fix a house and resell it, and my wife would kind of run that company. My main companies, though, that I focus on are in the health and wellness space. So we have a supplement company called NSP Nutrition, and it's been around actually since 1972. And we sort of took it over when it was like struggling. So we've been trying to build it back up. We have and then we have multiple brands in the keto space where we help with keto weight loss. We have a software that helps people build out like an 8-week diet plan that they can kind of follow, and then we have so it's just kind of things like that, structures that are or companies that are in different industries. And then there is actually a SaaS company that helps provide coding education for children through school.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
quite a
that's
few things.
that's a lot of stuff already. Like if people hear that, they will already think about like, wow, you must be a really busy man for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I would say before I used to be quite a bit very busy, and I'm sure I'm busier than like the average person is. But to me, it doesn't really feel that bad because my main focus has been building teams around the companies. I don't do everything. I don't do anything by myself. So I have partners in everything that I do. I just prefer that because then I don't have all the strengths. So I can focus more on what my strengths are and let them focus on their strengths. And so yeah, it's kind of like that. I don't necessarily do anything that's just me.
Mm.
Um, I think one of the things that I enjoy doing quite a bit now is a lot of people will be like an ad agency, or they'll maybe be like my background. I started as a person who wrote ads. That's kind of how I got started. So you'll find a lot of people that look to just do that as a service, get paid for it. But I kind of found that it made more sense for me to create partnerships with people and provide my skills towards the contribution as a form of equity. And so I began doing that, and that's kind of how I've gotten to where I'm at now.
So really, this is always interesting for our audience as well, like the journey where it all began. So you're basically saying by creating those partnerships, you were able to really get into different companies and build your, can I say, almost an empire of businesses around that?
Yeah, it's not quite empire status yet, but it's early days. But I think we're going there. Yeah, and that's the big thing because so many people, as I say, they and I don't blame them. You've got to at first, you got to get paid, you've got to make income, you have to feed your
Mm.
family. But once you have the shot, I think it's good to sort of like take that shot and actually go and try to, you know, invest in something. It doesn't have to. That's the thing too. Investing doesn't always have to be capital. It doesn't always have to be cash. It could be time too. And so that's kind of what I did. What my kind of hack, if you want to call it that, is to look for people that are true experts in their industry, but they really don't know how to market or sell or do any of those things, or they struggle with like the internet side. And then work with them and see, they get pitched all the time. Hey, pay me 20 grand. Hey, pay me 50 grand. Hey, instead of doing that, say, hey, I'll build out everything for you. I'll write everything for you. You just provide the content and the training. And so that's kind of what I've been able to do. And I continue to do that. So I almost feel like I'm a director looking for that great actress, or actor. You see them and you go, you're a star. And then you want to build everything around them. So, and then as I've grown, I've been able to become not just a director, but a producer. So then I can also finance it. So it's truly in that way, I've tried doing things where I teach stuff, and I think that my problem is I'm too much of a teacher. So even me it's very odd, but like it's harder for me to sell myself to than it is to sell other people. So I kind of just found that I enjoy it more. I'm more comfortable in the director's chair. So I can so it's almost like to continue out that analogy. I'm picking the film. I'm picking who the audience is going to see the film. I'm the script guy that's going to write the script, and then I'm going to direct it, and I'm going to produce it. And the actor is going to do their part. And that's not to say that they're not valuable, because obviously that they are. But by being the actor, I truly mean being the expert. So whatever they have specific knowledge on, then I will go with, I will help them to get that out there. And you'll see online, especially, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of experts trying to sell their stuff. Even from like psychologists, doctors, dietitians, there's so many people, and they want to sell some kind of information or a service or a software that they built, something like this, and they just don't know how. And so I kind of made it my goal to really develop my skills so I can help support those people. And instead of charging them cash up front, I share in the risk. And if the company does well, then I own a part of it.
Yeah, that's actually a great business model and a great analogy as well with the movie structure. Yeah. And I think this is also something that I'm really a fan of. More or less what we do with Titanology as well, which we bring experts from the field as well, because I also believe that one person cannot know it all. But if you're building a company, there's so much information that you need, and there's so much stuff out there. So it's not easy to really pick the right kind of information that really suits your company. So I believe as well, creating partnerships is huge for any kind of a company. Even if you're just a small solopreneur that does copywriting, like you really started as well, right?
Yeah.
When you create partnerships with agencies, for example, and start like that. So I think, yeah, this is a great way to start up. Tell me, Mike, how long did it really take before you reached the point that it really got the traction that you could start investing your time and money in other companies as well? What was like the tipping point? Because if you are invested in a company to help them build, at a certain point, if you want to do that for other companies, you have to almost duplicate yourself, or like you said, build a team around it. But what was the tipping point? When did you decide to go with other companies as well?
Good question. Yeah, it almost feels like it just sort of happened, but if I think about it, I'm sure I can pinpoint a few things. Firstly, I'll say that I started, biggest thing, I've been at it for quite some time. So I did start in like 2006, 2007 timeframe. So that's going on, 15 years now. So it's been a very steady, every day, a little bit at a time type thing. But I started, as I said, writing copy or ads, and I got a job at no, I would say very small, but a pretty small company. And I had a great mentor there, and she really showed me how to write ads. And I recall this one time, I probably wrote the same ad 10 times, and she kept sending it back. And I remember almost wanting to cry. It was like midnight. I was still there trying to write this thing, and she was just like, nope, and everything was just terrible. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this. I just can't, And I even thought about getting up and just like walking out. It was that bad. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it one more time. And I can remember it was like draft 10, 12, somewhere like that. And she was finally like, that's good enough. And I was like, oh man. And so anyway, from that point though, I think that one day, it's so weird, but that one day was a real breakthrough for me. I think before all that time, I had gotten close to breakthroughs and I would quit because I didn't know it at the time, but it's like that goal you want, that breakthrough you want is right past the point of where you want to go. You're not going to feel like you want to do the thing. There were so many times when I was younger that I tried something and it failed and I quit. And since then I've come to understand that failure is just a step on the way. You got to fail. That's like a sign that you're doing good, which sounds so odd because you think, oh, I fail, but it's just not, there's just not that. So anyway, I started to write all the time, and it started, began to do good. I actually helped. I wrote a pretty big launch program. So back then, and I remember this is a long time ago. So like 2006-7 timeframe, I created one of the first ever how to like make income blogging on WordPress. Which now it's kind of blah, but back then it was kind of neat. And I was teaching people how to use Google AdSense to make income, how to build opt-ins. And we even built our own little software to build your site for you faster, because people back then, especially, it was a big struggle. And so I sold, probably 500,000 or 600,000 of that course. And that was backed by my partnership with so let me take a step back. I started going to events, and there were people that I don't even know how, it's kind of weird, but they'd be like, hey, did you write this thing? Did you write that thing? And I'd be like, yeah, that was me. And they started offering me jobs. Hey, could you write for me? Hey, could you write this? Could you review this? You want to partner on a thing? And I was like, well, this is crazy. So I went and told my mentor, and she actually was like, well, I'll tell you what, why don't I make you a partner in our company? So I think she saw that there was good, stuff there. So she ended up making me a partner in multiple projects. And that's when we launched the blogging thing. And so that was kind of my first starting point. And I was able to I still recall, like, my sister, I was paying her to help me be like my assistant. So she had access to all my stuff. And she actually called me one day because we've been watching my bank account. And for the first time ever, I had $10,000 in there. And I remember thinking, like, that was rich, like I was like, this is crazy, $10,000. And she even called me to be like, did you see your bank account? And it was like 10,000 something. I remember I took a screenshot of it. I was so happy. But yeah, so anyway, from that point on, I just kept, I think a lot of people started to come to me. And so I didn't necessarily look for people, but it was and this was, and this took me from about 2006-7 to about 2010. That was just me doing work. And there's always that. I think people try to skip that part, or when they sell a course, they don't talk about that part. But there was a 4 or 5 year time where I was just cranking away. And then I was on, this is a whole other story I won't go into it, but then I ended up being on a weight loss show, and that took up about 1 year or so of my time. And when I came back, I reached out to some old friends of mine that I met from the company that I was at, and together we launched a marketing system for a networking company, like and so that was kind of my first big thing, and then that really took off. And so then I was kind of able to grow and grow and grow. And that's when I kind of became known as like the copywriter to like marketing companies. So I got a lot of jobs or partnerships, and then people would come to us and say, hey, can you build this for me? Can you build this for me? So by the time we were done, we had built out multiple things like that. And so then it's been the last probably since like 2019 or so when I started to do more stuff in the health field, which I enjoy that way more. And that's kind of, and then we were able to have some more capital with different partners, so we could decide if we wanted to buy something or build something or partner on something that's already there. So that's kind of it. It was a slow thing, I could just, and again, there's a lot of times where things just don't go right. You think they will, and then they just don't. So you have to be okay with that.
So really, it sounds that the whole journey that you've gone through, which is an amazing story, an amazing journey, and congrats and respect for that, Mike. I mean,
Thank you.
It seems to me also that the mindset is so huge, because, like you said, a lot of failures along the way, and it was only once you started to go through those failures and keep going after those failures that you had success. And even then, if you had a success, you had to keep going, keep going, keep going, even until now. Even if you have different companies, I might imagine that you have to have a right mindset to be able to run it all in a good way, so it doesn't become overwhelming. And that's what I see as well with a lot of people that I talk to. The overwhelm is something that happens quickly and a lot. So tell me more about your mindset, Mike. How did you go through this journey within a mindset that kept you going?
Yeah, it's probably, I think a big part of it is that I was very driven to do well. And I think when I was younger, especially, it probably drove me because I wanted to like prove people wrong. Because I would always, I recall being young and always saying, I'm going to do well. I'm going to make it, income, and I'm going to do all this stuff. And people would be like, yeah, all right, sure. They didn't. And I didn't come from a family that had done a lot of stuff. They were awesome, but they were more job people. I did have an aunt who had done quite a bit, but generally speaking, it was very much like find a job, not a lot of like college or anything like that. And so, I just didn't want to go down that route. And I saw my mom work hard all the time. She just worked. I mean, so I think there was a time frame where she worked at an average of like over 80 hours a week for 2 or 3 years. Wow. Just crazy. But yet we were still like struggling. It wasn't like we were doing, I mean, it wasn't bad, but we weren't like doing good for how much time she put in. So I knew from a young age that if your income was tied to your time output, that you're very restricted. And so I began to try to look for things that would give me the ability to leverage myself. And, because that's the thing, like the only way to really make more income is to do things at scale, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're a professional with an incredible skill, then there's very, very few of you. So you can obviously charge a lot for your time, but you're still trading time. But if you have decent skills, but you can teach it and sell it as a download, you don't have to do it 1 million times. You can sell 1 million copies. So I think that was part of what I was thinking back then. But I do think the biggest thing was I had failed a lot, and then I actually came up with this quote. There's 2 quotes, and it's kind of weird that they're mine, but I don't feel like they're me. It's so weird. The first one was, the mansion of success is built upon a foundation of a failure. And when I started to think about that, I started to reframe failure. I didn't say, okay, failing means that I didn't win. No, it just means that I'm digging the hole that I'm going to build my success on. and that's kind of a big thing for me. And I began to really visualize that. Like, wow, this isn't a fail. This is just me doing the thing I had to do to get to where I want to be. And then the other quote that I love, this is my favorite quote. Again, I know it's very egotistical because it's me, but I feel like it just popped in my head. So it's not like I said and like thought about it, but it just says, life rewards those who take action, not those who take notes. And I just was like, that's really good. Like it just came to me, and I like wrote that down, and it was kind of awkward too, because I, wrote it down as a note, but it is very true, right? Like, so many people, how many people have you met, or maybe you've talked to them, you've given them instructions, ideas, and they're like, oh, that sounds great. They jot it down, but those ideas or those things never turn into action.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just made a choice. I was going to take action. I was going to screw up a lot. Here's the thing too, that I believe from a mindset standpoint. There's an economist, Thomas Sowell, and one of the things that he kind of, his like, a big thing that he came up with is that there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And when you begin to think like that, you start to understand more of the reality. As I become a CEO, I see that even more than ever, because everyone comes to you with their department's problems or issues, and for them it's such an easy fix. They're like, hey, we just need to do this, but they don't have the ability to see all the other things that are going on. So if finance can't buy this new equipment, then you can't do this thing, even though that's better for you. Finance needs to pay for this thing for the sales team, because we need sales more than we need support, so there's all these things. So I think that's a big thing that people do as well, is they come at problems and they think they're going to solve them. That there's a perfect fix that's just going to solve everything. The reality is that pretty much always, you're never solving anything. You're choosing what trade-offs you'll accept. You're saying, okay, well, I'm going to trade this for that. It's just, again, it's not sexy. It doesn't sound fun, but it's the reality. And I think that's also part of my viewpoints, is like, I take things as they are, not as I wish they would be. And then that gets back to my philosophy that I follow, called stoicism. So I'm very much in that way, that everything that occurs is how it was supposed to be. And my job is to make meaning of it, to live a good life, and to not let anything get me down for very long. I mean, I've been through a lot of bad stuff. I mean, I had a few years ago, went through a terrible lawsuit for one of my companies. It was a nightmare. But I maintained that I would just do what I had to do. I was able to settle it. But, those kind of things are going to occur. I read a great quote one day, and it said something like, life is basically extremely good times and extremely bad times with mundane times in between. And I thought, like, that's really true. It's like when you view life as like as from like a very top down view, it's like you have a child and things are awesome. Then maybe sadly you or someone gets very sick, and then things are terrible. And then you start a new company and you're good again, but everything in between is just doing the thing. So we're just truly waiting around for big events to occur, probably 90% of them that are outside of our control. So anyway, all those things are kind of how I think about it. And I just try to control what I can. Focus on things that I can do, and don't ever let my thoughts run. So I think a lot of people, that's one thing for them too, is they'll get their brain to go, and they'll think about the wrong stuff, and they'll dwell. It's very, very easy to dwell on negative thoughts. I don't know why that is, but it's just the way our brains are. So you got to create ways to not do that, especially if you're going through hard times, and that's easier said than done, for sure.
What would be your go-to method to make sure that you don't dwell and that you keep those positive thoughts in your mind?
Yeah, so I do a few things. I haven't done this as much as I used to, but for years and years and years, I actually wrote like a very like positive opening statement that I would read every single day, and I would be like, it would start off like, "My name is Mike, and today is the greatest day in the history of the world because
Mhm.
right now, this moment is all that I have. Make the most of it." It was something like that, and then I would go into, "I am fit, I am healthy, I am happy, I speak on at events and I'm interviewed on." It was just like the reality that I wanted. I don't know if it really, I don't know how it seems to get me the results that I want, but it just seems like it does. And then if there are negative thoughts, a strategy that I'll do, and I mean, and again, it's like psychiatrists may call this avoidance, but generally speaking, I'll get up, go walking, do something to distract myself for that time, call a
Mhm.
friend, talk to someone, because I think that in any of those things, they kind of come, but they don't stay. You almost, and the biggest thing I ever that I've read a book once, and I think it was by, I can't remember his name right now, but he said, oh, it was Eckhart Tolle in the book, and I'm not into that stuff. I'm not like a big like woo woo guy, but he said this cool thing, and it said that we are not the voice in our head, we are the awareness of that voice, and it's pretty cool, right? Because the voice is in your head, and you're looking at it, you're seeing it. So that really helped me a lot.
And yeah, that's a great observation, and it makes total sense because I'm into uh, meditation these last couple of weeks, months,
Yeah,
and one thing that they teach you is to see your thoughts from a distance as well. And
yeah,
there they make the analogy about your thoughts are like, just imagine that you're beside a highway and all the cars running by are your thoughts, and you're actually next to it and just looking at your thoughts. And this is like a little bit of the same concept, but it is true. And I
yeah,
think it's even scientifically proven that if you train your brain, train yourself to look at it like that, you become less overwhelmed because you don't dwell on those thoughts. You see them, and they're just there. They don't really have a meaning because they will always be there. And that is something that maybe a lot of people should realize as well. Negative thoughts, positive thoughts, they will always be there, but it's your choice what to do with them.
yeah.
So it's great that you say that. It's really great that you do that. And I think it's a big part of how you can become more successful. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and that's, and again, it's not like I'm always the best. I'm sure my spouse would say that I'm not very good. So it's all about practicing. But yeah, that is one area that I've done as well with the meditation. And I don't know if you know this, but they've actually been doing a lot of studies now, and medit when you meditate certain time, it actually does change your brain.
Yeah.
Like physical parts of the brain change that do make you more in control and
Yeah.
more aware. And I think that is the big key, awareness, right? That is it. If you become
Mhm.
aware, I remember like the weirdest thing that I remember as a kid. Well, one time I remember laying in bed and just thinking like, where am I? And like having this like existential crisis of like, what, like, why am I was like, am I real? It's this
Mhm.
whole crazy thing. But the other one was something had happened. I don't even know what. And I was just crying, crying. And then I was like, I suddenly was like, what are tears? Like, why am I shaking and tears are coming out of my eyes? And I just found it so weird that I
Mhm.
stopped crying. And I think those were like some early, I don't know what they were, but they were just becoming aware of things.
Yeah.
So, I think that sometimes if we can just take that second, that pause, and think before we go down a negative thought pattern, because that's all they are, right? They're just
Mhm.
they're just things that our brains created to comfort us, even though they don't. We think they do, and so we just run them, and it's
Yeah,
it's tough.
we are really good at making up stories.
Yeah,
Yeah, in our
yeah,
head, like why do people do this, or maybe it should be like that, or this person did that to me because of this. All stories that are not true until you really actually talk to somebody, or they will never be true, but we dwell
yeah,
on them and we keep thinking about it. But if you create that awareness that it's just thoughts and it's just your brain playing tricks on you, it becomes easier to cope with that. And I think this is an important part of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, especially in your case, where you have multiple businesses, that you need to have a level head, let's say, where you need to have that composure. Otherwise, you get crazy.
yeah. The business world is not for everyone. It is a lot of ups and downs, and I think it's like you're kind of called towards it, because you definitely need to have the ability to take a lot of hits. It's like saying, can anyone box? Sure, you can, but you got to
Mm.
want to. You've got to not mind getting hit.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing too for me is the idea of being um, what's the right word for it? Just resilient, right? You got
Mm.
to have that resiliency. And a thing that I would say too is, like, when you're in business, you have one job. Your whole job is to solve problems. If you think about it, all the business is there to do is solve a problem for a certain customer. And so if you don't like dealing with problems, then you're in the wrong field, because
Mm.
literally all you're going to do is your product is solving a problem for someone. Think about it, even something simple. Why do you go out to eat? You have a problem. What's the problem? You hungry. So the restaurant's job is to solve that problem by giving you food, and that has to be food that you like, food that you want, food that you want to come back for. And then in order to do that, the employer has to create a whole system to solve your problem. So they have to bring on staff, they have to choose foods, they have to buy in all this stuff. They have to buy the food, they have to prep the food. So it's and then all of those steps are going to have problems. Oh,
Mm.
there's not enough space here for a fridge and then freezer. What are we going to do? We got to cut out a wall and make a space. Like you're always solving problems. Now, the interesting thing is, the bigger the problem that you solve, the bigger the profit potential. So solving someone who's hungry in this, in the States, isn't a huge problem. There are
Mm.
people that are, and that's not good, and we can help them. But generally speaking, a lot of people are out there to help you solve that problem. But if you're like, uh, the leading expert on triple bypass heart surgeries or whatever, very few people can solve that problem. So your profit's huge, right?
Mm.
And that's how I tell people all the time, like, don't cry or be upset because you're dealing with problems. That means you're doing something. You're
Mm.
fixing things and you're on your way. And you're only going to turn a profit when you solve a problem. That's just the way it is.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, if I think about, like, okay, we talk a lot about mindset and we talk a lot about this kind of stuff, but in the end, it's who you are, right? It's who you are as
Yeah.
a CEO, as a business owner. Then my question is, like, how much of this is important for you to be aligned with your team? Meaning, are you if you hire somebody, if you're building your team around you, do you make sure that they understand your mindset, that they understand your philosophy about what we have been talking now?
I probably don't do a very good job on that side as I should. I used to do a lot more when I had a bigger company.
Mm.
We did like personality tests and things like that, and we did a lot more interviews. A lot of that stuff now, this is also part of my philosophy as well, is that I kind of, if people join that I trust and that I like and that I've interviewed and I put them over something, I kind of let them be, and I kind of
Mm.
let them do their thing. If I was focusing on just a singular, company that I was going to really scale, then I probably would be more apt to that. But I kind of take a sort of like non-centralized view of things. You
Yeah.
know, I like to let different people run things how they do. And just like how in the States we have each state has its own little government, and you have like the federal government, and the idea being that those closest to the problem can solve it better than those farther. And so I tend to let people kind of build their own cultures and kind of let them have their say on things. One that actually attracts better people, because most people that are very good don't want to be told do this, do this, do that. They want to kind of be able to do their own thing. And then secondly too, it also makes it easier for me because I don't have to be the guy saying, hey, do this, do that, you know? And so that's kind of more what I do. But I will say that I'm very picky with who I would partner with or who I would put over a company. But then once I've done that, my assumption is that they're going to bring that culture. Like who you are tends to attract the right people. But you have to watch out because there are always going to be people that kind of sneak in, and you have to kind of keep an eye out on that. But generally speaking, you know, you're going to attract who you are.
And the crew, the culture, these kind of things is what you put into your system, let's say, and you call it scaling the 7 C's for any company. So culture is part of that. The crew is part of that. What else is part of this?
Yeah, well, the biggest ones, you know, and this always sounds cheesy, but you have compass, and that is where you're trying to go. Like who are you, or you know, what's your North Star, what guides you, and that's like your purpose. You know, like why are you there? A lot of companies don't really think about that, and maybe you don't have to. This is not a have to, but if you want to scale and you want to grow and you want to create something that out survives you, even, you know, this is where those kind of things come in. The other big one, obviously, is consistency. And for me, that consistency means consistency of outcome for your customer, consistency of all your technology, all your systems, all the things that help you create whatever it is that you create, right? Because you've got to be consistent in those things. If you go to your favorite restaurant and one day the food's great and one day the food's terrible, it's not good, right? You're going to say, I'm not going to come back here again. So consistency in all things. And it's a lot more than I can say now, but there's a lot. There's quite a bit there. Then there's also probably the most important one as far as being able to actually make things run, and that is customer acquisition. So that includes marketing, that includes sales, and you want to really, really focus in on those areas. There's also care, which is basically how do you care for your customers? How do you care for your employees? How do you care for other stakeholders? That could be your environment even. How do you, if you're out there tearing up the earth, you know what I mean? Like maybe you should rethink that or find some other way. And then you have cash. So cash is the big one. That's like all your financials and how you're going to pay everything. And that includes cash flow, cash management, books, all that fun stuff that most of us hate.
Yeah.
And I may have skipped one, I don't know, but I think that's all of them.
Well, if we go over them again, so we have compass, like you said,
Yeah.
culture, crew, customer acquisition, consistency, care, and cash.
Yeah, I think we got them all. Yeah, and then I just to touch on it, culture and crew. Culture is basically who we are and how we do things. And that's a very big one. You can't really scale a company without a good culture. And the crew is obviously your people, and who are they, and why did you pick them? And once you choose your culture, there's almost like a back and forth between your culture and your crew. Every time you add someone to your crew, you're truly modifying culture. So you want to get to a point where they kind of self-feed themselves. Where if someone comes on and they're not a right fit, the culture should push them out because they just don't feel like they fit there. And that takes time, but that's kind of where you want to go as you kind of scale it.
Yeah, that's good. That's indeed a good point there. So in your opinion, what is scaling? When you have a startup, you're building your company, at what point can you really talk about scaling? Is it at a point that you start adding team members, or is it at a point that you can 10x your revenue, or like?
Yes, good question. I think it's very dependent upon the individual company and what their goals are. But to me, I always like to I always look at things as like 6 figure, 7 figure, 8 figure. So your first goal is to survive. You're basically like an infant, and you just want to survive. Once you can cross above 6 figures, around 150 to two, and again, it depends on the company, but once you get around 250 or so, that's when you want to. That's when you can start to push to that 1 million revenue. Now, I've seen this quite a bit, where many times as the owner, you may make about the same as a smaller 6 figure company than as a 7 figure company, because you're almost like paying for all of these kind of fixed expenses, and you're being forced to add staff, and those salaries eat up a lot of your profit. And so it also comes down to what you want. If you just want a nice income and be able to chill, maybe it's best to stay where you're at, so you've got to be of a certain mindset to want to do that, and you have to almost push through a time frame where things are pretty tight as you scale it up, because you're going to need cash to scale. You're going to need time. And the other thing that's so interesting is that we always talk about the word scale, but we never really think about the fact that the word scale actually holds the truth about what you have to do. Because if you think about a scale helps give you a weight, and helps to give you a balance, right? You can see the two scales. Well, that's truly how you have to scale. So you can't just scale sales. If you just scale sales, you won't have enough leads for your sales team. So you have to scale marketing and sales. Now, if you scale marketing and sales crushes it, but you weren't prepared with fulfillment, you're going to struggle. So you have to balance and raise everything up equally at the same time. So one of the toughest things that I have to tell people is like, hey, you're going to need to hire more support people while you're growing your sales team. And they're like, why? Because you don't want to be behind, because if you oversell and can't fulfill, you're going to take a huge hit.
Yeah.
So it's all about that. It's all about scaling and keeping things balanced as you scale them up.
Yeah. Awesome. Great stuff. Yeah. So I guess, like, using the word scale, we have to be careful there, because if you see in today's online marketing, there's tons of programs, coaches, and gurus out there that say that they will scale your company. But scaling in that sense that you go from 10K to 100K, for example, is that scaling? Is that really scaling, or is that growing?
I would say that's growth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think scaling is going to get you past 7. My biggest company, I was able to take it with my partner to just around 25 million. So I want to beat that. That's kind of the way that I am, but it's going to be tough. But that was, that's what I would like to do. So I have experience up to about that point. I don't know yet how big I could go. I think I've heard and studied a lot that around 100 million per, things start to really, change. I think also, me personally,
Yeah.
I don't like the corporate world. At a certain point, you have to turn that way, because you have to, you're doing all this stuff. So I think that probably for me, 25 million, 50 is kind of where I would scale to, and then sell out, because there's no point for me there anymore. I like the startup stage to the growth stage into the first scale stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, great stuff, Mike. Tell me more about the next few months for you. What have you gotten on your planning?
Oh man, well, I've got multiple companies right now that we're trying to figure out what to do with. So we may be selling a couple things. We've got one that needs like a big investment. So I'm actually going out raising funds for that one. Well, not really raising funds. I'm just going to got friends and stuff that are going to pitch in, because I kind of feel, I think it's going to be pretty big. So I kind of want to give friends and stuff like a good shot at it, which is kind of weird, but I think it'll be I think it'll be fun. It's a SaaS that allows people, that's going to help people write ads like faster and easier.
Good.
Yeah, and I've got the stuff with, we're coming into Q4 right now, so health stuff. We'll have another few good months, but then it kind of dies out. So we got to start to prep though for January, because that's a big time. That's a big month. I would say we get probably well over, maybe not half, but close to it can be made in just Q1, because that's when everyone's on it. Summertime, kind of back to school too, is good time too, but end of summer. But yeah, so I'll be doing that. I'm hoping maybe to go visit one of my partners in England and spend a couple weeks there for Christmas time. Would be pretty cool. Yeah. I'm in Florida, so it's so hot here. I would love to see some snow in winter,
Yeah, definitely you'll get that here. That's for sure. Cool. Mike, where can people find you if they want to know more about what you do?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about me personally and things like that, go to onlyonemike.com, ONLYONE Mike.com. But if you want to get on the pre-launch for that software, go to prontowrite.com. I'm going to give away some free seats to that, so I can get some feedback. It's going to be pretty cool software. So I'm just, not trying to sell anything, but I would enjoy to get some beta testers.
Yeah. Here you go. This is the link. So you can go to prontowrite.com to learn more about that. Other than that, Mike, I want to thank you a lot for your time and for your wisdom, your knowledge, and your value that you shared today. It was awesome to have you. And looking forward what you have in petto for the next few months and years. One last question that I would like to ask you. What is growth for you?
That's a broad question. So I could go a thousand ways. I think growth for me is, like, personally, is accepting change and being okay with that change and going on to the next thing. Most of the time we don't really make choices to change. It's kind of like something event occurs, some outside thing. So for me, growth is how quickly I get to be able to accept a change and continue on that side of it. Just, I don't know. I went down that route. I don't know why.
Awesome. Good. Thanks a lot, Mike, again for your time. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we will see each other soon again. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.